Bonjour everyone and welcome back to the waves of your soul. I am back again. I am so excited to be back for this whole video. This is my first video I'm filming after a long break. I didn't anticipate to be taking about a month off YouTube, but things happened and I missed you so much. So I'm so happy to finally be back with what I think could be the most epic haul video I've ever filmed. And I know that's a statement because God knows I've done quite a few of them, and a girl loves to shop. We're gonna be talking about decks, we're gonna be talking about books, there's gonna be mass market, there's gonna be indie. There is so much to share with you, and I thought what better way to come back than doing a whole videos, because I love watching them, I love making them. So in the description box you're gonna find chapters. There's gonna be the chapter for books, the chapter for decks. You'll also find all the names of the stuff I'm mentioning, my other social media links, other videos of mine you might want to check out, everything you might be wondering about, maybe in the description box. And the reason why I think this haul might be so epic and so long, because I'm gonna share with you everything I brought back from my trip to the UK. So I went away at the end of January / beginning of February for a little trip to the UK. There's a whole story behind it. There's so much that happened behind the scene, but I'm gonna be talking about all of that in my February monthly video that's gonna come up later this month. This is usually where I do my life catch-ups. I'll tell you everything about the trip, why I went, how it went, and I'll also share with you then all the other things I brought back that is not books or decks related, trinkets and little souvenirs and makeup and lifestyle bits, which I know some of you will enjoy. If you want to hear all about more life catch-ups, things that have been going on behind the scenes, current lifestyle favorites, and all of those things, then watch out for my future monthly favorites that will come out later. But today I just really wanted to share with you all the decks and books I brought back from my trip, because I packed that suitcase to the brim, okay? I'm surprised I wasn't arrested at custom for deck trafficking because for once I was a deck mule and I made the most of it. So without further ado, let's get into this epic books, tarot and oracle decks haul. I missed you guys so much. I'm so happy to finally be back. Like I said, it's my first video after taking about a month's break. I hadn't planned on being on that long because I wasn't actually on the trip for that long, but the recovery post-trip took a lot longer than I expected. For those of you who are not aware, I navigate the waters of chronic pain, chronic illness, so that always dictates what's going on in my life. And obviously, after going on such a long trip, the payback for my body has been quite intense. But today, I'm feeling a little bit more mobile. I'm finally out of bed, and I'm just super excited to share with you all the things I brought back, as well as some of the things that were waiting for me in my post box when I came back home. Let's start with randoms. Things that are not necessarily meant for divination that I decided to bring back in order to use as divination. First thing is Rory's Story Cubes. I have been made aware of this game because yes, this is a board game originally by some of you on my channel. So if you are one of those people, thank you so much, you rock. So some of you had been recommending this particular board game to me, which is mostly made of cubes, as you can see, because I'm constantly talking about on my channel about turning board games into divination practices, into oracle deck, into a way to divine somehow. This particular board game, Rory's Story Cube, is just a lot of different cubes, a lot of different dices. On each dice you have different symbols, and so the way that you can use them, I think obviously there's a particular game related to this where I'm guessing you have to tell a story depending on the dices you throw, things like that. But the way I want to use it is for divination purposes, mostly for my charm casting practice. I think obviously look, there's a tower here, so I might even be able to find some major arcana in here. Per usual, I overdid it, and instead of just getting the regular version, I got the deluxe version, and in the deluxe version you have different themes. You have a mythic theme, Prehistoria, like sports, scary, spooky Halloween types. You have the medic type, and you have clues for like Sherlock Holmes style vibes. And so I'm hoping between all of those that I'll be able to find some major arcana related themes, like I've already got the world and the tower, for example. I might even be able to do a Lenormand set, which would be great. I love using for divination anything that is not meant for divination. Turning games into different divination systems makes me happy, it brings me joy, it makes my inner child real elated. Dixit cards are still to this day some of my favorite cards that I use for oracle purposes. I think there's definitely a version where you just get the first box here and you don't get all the extra. Obviously I'm extra, so I got all the other bits, but I'm super pumped to get like even this one, which has all of the Halloween vibes. Here we have a lot of stuff for shadow work that could be interesting. We have entrampment, we have ghosts, we have poison. Like there's so much I could make out of those dice in terms of like, we have defensiveness, coming back to life, you know, overactive brain. There's so much I can think of when I look at those dice that either in a divination sense or an oracular sense would be a lot of fun to use and also insightful. Grateful for those of you who told me about this because I'm obsessed, and obviously watch out for future readings, like all my future pick a card readings and stuff, and we're just gonna have a lot of fun together. Continuing in the random category, a little project I'm giving myself, which I wanted to share with you guys, and if you want me to do a video about this particular project, let me know. I'm happy to make a little video about this particular little fun project I'm doing. I found this game, again, turning a board game into something oracular or divination related. It's my jam. This is a game that I bought at Tiger. It's a shop in Europe. It's not just in England, it exists. I know my friend in Spain has it. It's like a stationery shop. They have like little gifts and mugs and decoration and home things and notebooks and stuff. It's a super fun shop. We sadly don't have it in Reunion, but it was one of my favorite shops when I lived in the UK. I went there with my friend. I found this particular game. Originally it's for mimes, so you have different like cards, and some cards are you're supposed to mime the sound, and some of them you're supposed to like actually mime like charade, you know, to make people guess what it is. A friend who's a school teacher was telling me about this game because she uses it with her school kids. I fell in love with the particular design and I decided to pick it up because I want to turn this into an oracle deck. All the backs are the same, which is perfect, and all the drawings I think are gonna be so great at coming up with different keywords and turning this into an oracle. So again, we have lots of different things. We have sounds and we have mimes, and there's everything here from animals to day-to-day things, day-to-day objects. There's emotions, and I think this is super cute. Like, I love the design. I think I paid like £3 for it, if I remember. It was super cheap. I am just so pumped to start thinking about keywords and making my own oracle deck with this. I'm even considering writing through 4 different keywords, one on each side, and then depending how the card falls, we could also have some directionality because of the square size. So first question is, what do you think I should do? Should I just put 1 keyword here and keep it as a kind of like regular oracle, or should I put a keyword on each side and make it as a way where we can have directionality and where the cards could be turned in different ways? That's my first question for you. What do you think would be better? The second question is, do you want me to make a little video about this? About how I'm turning this into an oracle? Just what keywords I choose. I can take you along my thinking process, stuff like that. If you are interested, let me know. I'll happily make either a little video or Instagram reel or something about it. And yeah, if you have Tiger and you enjoy this, I would definitely encourage you to go and check it out. I don't know how long they'll have this in stock because usually with this particular shop things go in and out very quickly, but if you can find your hands on it, like I said, it was only £3 and it's great. I love the design, it's super cute, and it's a nice little fun project I've given myself. I take a moment to appreciate this amazing silk scarf. This is one of the things that I brought back. I went to a Monet exhibition, and again, I'll tell you everything about this because there's a very deep and powerful story behind this particular Monet theme that I've had during the trip, but I'll share that with you in my monthly favorites. You can only see a part of it right now. It's a huge silk scarf of the Nymphaea painting, and it's one of my favorite paintings in the world and one of my favorite painters in the world, so this whole background, it's just making me super happy. So for books, I have quite a few of them. We have some fiction, some non-fiction. For those of you who've never been to the UK, one of the biggest bookshop is called Waterstones. It's amazing. They have fiction, non-fiction. It's so great. They usually always have this particular deal where you get one book, where you buy one book and you get another one half price. It's like their main thing. And so the first 2 books I got from Waterstones were 2 fiction books that I've not read yet. I've not read any of the books I'm sharing with you yet because I literally just came back. And like I said, I've been struggling with my health to get back on my feet. But of course, once I've read them, I'll share with you my thoughts. And usually I share those again in monthly favorites. And there are 2 books I'd never heard of that I just literally found at random in the bookshop, which I love when that happens. I love letting myself be surprised. It's always a nice feeling. So the first one is called The Cloister, and the first thing that attracted to me obviously is the cover because it's super gorgeous. As soon as I turned around, I read the back and saw this. She discovers a mysterious, once believed lost deck of 15th century Italian tarot cards, finds herself playing a dangerous game of toxic friendship and unbridled ambition. So this is about someone working in a museum, finding a set of tarot cards. So I saw Italian tarot cards, I saw that they said a gothic masterpiece, something gothic and menacing and a bit spooky. And when I was in the shop, I didn't overthink it. I just grabbed it and decided that I wanted to give it a chance because it sounded really good. It's about tarot, it's supposed to be a little bit gothic, and I'm all about that. So I'm very excited about that. I shared this on my Instagram. A lot of you said it was really good. If you've enjoyed it, let me know in the comments. Obviously try and keep it spoiler free, but let me know if you've enjoyed it or not. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The second one that I picked up as part of this particular deal is called Babel. Again, I hadn't heard of it, but I just saw that it had won Book of the Year, so that got me interested. And so this says Oxford 1836, the city of dreaming spires. It is the center of knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institution of Translation, the tower from which all of the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? A fantasy book, it's inspiring itself from the Babel Tower, and it's set for Philip Pullman fans, and I love Philip Pullman's trilogy. So again, I didn't overthink it. It was fantasy, it was very highly ranked, it was like in the number 1's sales, and I was like, well, if a lot of people like it, probably it's very good. So those are the first 2 fiction books I grabbed. I'm very excited to get into them. Again, if you've read any of them, let me know your thoughts in the comment down below. One day my friend and I managed to go into central London, and we went into the huge Waterstones that is in Charing Cross, which is on several levels, and there's a coffee shop in there, and it's so nice. There's couches and you can really take your time. And so we spent a good hour and a half in there because again, my friend is a school teacher, so she was in heaven finding all the English books for kids, and I had a really good time going into the mythology section, going into like the history section, and I decided to pick up 2 books in order to like bring back something very England related, very British related that I knew would still be of great interest to me. And the first thing that I'm actually super pumped to get into is called The Fairy Tellers, and it's a journey into the secret history of fairy tales. Now, you know, if you've watched my channel before, that I'm obsessed with fairy tales. Last year I did a whole deep dive into them. I used them to turn into tarot readings. It's still something I'm very enjoying doing. I'm still working on potentially posting more pick-a-card readings inspired by fairy tales, because it's just a theme I enjoy. Bringing tarot and fairy tale works for me. The psychological depths behind fairy tales, the story type, it just makes me happy. And this I'd never heard of, but this is actually not about the fairy tales, but about the people who wrote them. So here we're talking about the tales and the tellers, and we follow the inventors, thieves, rebels, forgotten geniuses, and unlikely protagonists who gave us our most influential classics. What actually influenced our fairy tales? It's about the people and the cultures and the stories that influence the stories that we still tell today. So this is a very different take on fairy tales, but it is something that absolutely speaks to me. It's something that I know I'm gonna love, and it's another depth into a world and a theme that is very close to my heart. So when I saw this particular one, it was a no-brainer. When I spoke to the people at the shop, they really highly recommended it and said it was very good. So I'm excited to get into it. And again, I would love to know your thoughts. If you've read this, if you've heard of it or anything like that, let me know in the comments. So picked up called Woodland Folk Tales of Britain and Ireland by Lisa Schneider. Oh, I didn't give you any of the authors of the other one, I'm so sorry, but you could tell on the books, and I'll read them in the description description box. I would probably butcher their names anyway, so we can all rejoice I didn't do that. I wanted to pick at least one history or mythology inspired book about England or the British Isles in general from my trip because, again, just something as a memory to bring back. But this one caught my eye because it's specifically about woodlands and the stories about folktales happening around the woods. And I read that the author was also trained as an ecologist, so I know there's going to be a whole work around bringing nature and tales and the way that they played a part and are intertwined together. So this was exactly what I was looking to bring back, and I was just super happy to find it. And again, if you've read it, let me know in the comments. The last book I want to share with you, and then we'll move on to decks. And girl, there's a lot of decks, be prepared, there's so many. The last book I want to share with you is actually a tarot related book, and it's a book I wanted to order to Reunion but they didn't deliver here. I was so lucky to manage to go into Watkins, which is, if you're not familiar, a tarot shop in London. It's near Covent Garden. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, tarot shop in England. It is where the Golden Dawn members used to meet for their secret occult meetings, and so it's a place that is charged with history. This was definitely very high on my to visit list. I wasn't sure I would be able to make it because, again, due to chronic pain, chronic illness, I had some days where I couldn't really move and some days where I was a bit more mobile. But thanks to my Spanish best friend, we actually one day managed to make it to Central. Like I said, we made it to Charing Cross, went to Waterstones, and then made it all the way to Watkins. I couldn't stay very long because I was starting to flare up by the time I got there, but I stayed long enough to do some damage on my bank account. And one of the things I picked up in Watkins was this particular book. This is 2 Esoteric Tarot. Can you see that? Yeah, 2 Esoteric Tarot, Adams and Poncet by Scarlet Imprint. The Scarlet Imprint is a publishing house that makes books and sometimes decks. They are the ones who made the Oculi Occultati, which is one of my favorite decks, which is now out of print. And oh, there you go, Watkin Books. This is the place I was telling you about. The people there are so nice. Honestly, I can't recommend it enough for you to check it out if you make it to London. Even though I didn't stay long, I had the best time. So nice there, the people. There's so much choice of tarot and books, oracle decks, there's crystals and trinkets, like everything you could think of in a cool esoteric shop. Apparently there's also some people on site who do tarot readings and stuff. Then I couldn't stay very long because I was starting to flare up at that point, but I'm definitely going back the next time I'm going to the UK because I had such a good time. So this was a book I had originally planned on ordering, except at the time when it came out towards the end of last year, they didn't deliver to Reunion. But then when I went into Watkins, I saw they had it and it was a no-brainer. There was so many books in Watkins, it was very difficult for me to not pick literally half the store. But obviously suitcase spaces was an issue, so I had to be mindful and I had to think about, okay, which is the one that you really want to get, the one that you know you'll not be able to find anywhere else, and this was the one. So this is an analysis of Tarot de Marseille from 2 different authors. We have Peter Marks Adam and Christophe Poncet, and so this is both of their research, both of their philosophies, exploring the Tarot de Marseille. We go back also around the Solabusca Tarot and their view on the history, and it's going back to the roots of tarot. It's going back to the roots of the designs, people who are very well versed into its history, into its story, into its trends. Again, I've not read it yet, but I knew that this is something that I really wanted to get into, and so it was a no-brainer. And I'm always curious to hear about people's views and philosophies on tarot, especially around the story of tarot, and I think this is going to be a very interesting view. I will leave the link to where you can get this in the description box. I don't know if it's still in print because all their books and decks are always limited prints, but if it is, I'll leave it in the description box so you can order it if you're interested. It's beautiful. Let's move on to decks, and there are 11 of them. When I tell you I have packed that suitcase to the brim and there was nothing else that fit, I had to sit on it for it to close. It was one of those situations, but I was no way I was going to make it to Europe and not make the most of it and not bring back all the decks that I can't get where I live in Reunion. So the first decks I want to share with you are mass market decks. My friend Jen, who lives in the UK, who, if you're watching, who, if you're watching, I'm sending so many hugs and I miss you already. She very kindly let me do an Amazon order at her house so that I could order some mass market deck. The first one is the Circe Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. This is a fairly new deck, I believe. It's been out only a few months. I think it came out end of last year. And it's a Greek mythology inspired tarot deck. It's by Lo Scarabeo, like I said. Here are the backs if I've not shown that. This is actually the deck I've been using since I've gotten back. Some of them that I'm going to share with you I haven't even read with, and I'll tell you which ones I have and which ones I haven't. So this is going to be a mix between some almost unboxing first impressions and some like these ones. I'm going to give you mini reviews because I've been using them for a few weeks. And so this one is definitely one that I've really been enjoying using ever since I've gotten back. It's inspired by Greek mythology, which it tells you all about in the guidebook, which I really enjoy. So in the guidebook, it will tell you all the characters, all the different gods and goddesses and muses and stuff that are represented. So we love that. What I like though is that it's not necessarily in your face about the Greek mythology. So even if you don't know who the characters are, who the gods and goddesses are, it won't stop you from enjoying the deck because it follows the RWS tradition quite closely. The one thing that really appealed to me was the graphics. I love this particular aesthetic. Who is the artist of this? Fabio Vicentin and Perluigi Serra. Again, so sorry if I butchered that, but really enjoy the designs, really enjoy the graphics, and I've actually been pairing it with an oracle deck I'll share with you in a bit that have just been making so much sense together. They've just been like a powerhouse together, and so there's the main decks I've been using recently. I really enjoy the guidebook. Even the guidebook is interesting. Like I said, it actually tells you who the people are. And with this deck, we just get on. It's one of those that ever since I've picked it up, it reads really well for me. It's clear, it's no-brainer. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to overthink it. The one thing I will say that surprised me is color-wise, it's a little bit darker than I expected. So when you are reading it in the evening, for example, the darker colors tend to like look a little bit more murky. In daytime it's very beautiful, and on camera it actually looks a bit brighter than it is. So I think that's something to be aware of. I do notice like in camera it does look brighter. Another thing that surprised me is how slippery the cards are. Oh my god, I feel like Lo Scarabeo has changed their cardstock for this. I'm not a cardstock pro, you know that if you watch my channel. I never really mention cardstock because I'm kind of clueless, to be honest. I don't really know cores and grams and all of that stuff. That's not my world. But I can tell you that this feels a lot more slippery than all the other decks I bought previously. So it feels like they've changed their cardstock. If I compare it to the Symbolic Soul Tarot, for example, the Symbolic Soul felt a little bit more matte. This feels a little bit more slippery. So another mass market addition to my collection, the Fifth Spirit Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess. So this one I've not used yet, but I've read the guidebook. I've read the guidebook cover to cover, and there's actually some great spreads in there. Some of them I even shared on my Instagram story. The guidebook has been a really enjoyable read, and so I feel like I've gotten to know this deck at least a little bit, even though I've not used it yet, from reading the words of the author, from looking at the spreads. I tried a couple of spreads with another deck that they suggested, and I really enjoyed it. So it's one that is definitely a modern deck. It's a modern take on the RWS. At its core, it's looking at tarot through a non-binary angle. It's removing the binary vision we might have, and it's putting inclusivity as its center. So this is definitely a deck that is meant to be very inclusive and representing all different types of people and folks, and so this is what particularly attracted me first to this deck. One I would feel very comfortable using for pick a card readings, for example, or for people I'm reading with in person. It's just one that I feel like a lot of people could see themselves in. We have all sorts of skin tones, all sorts of bodies, we have all sorts of age. On top of that, what attracted me to this deck, because I do have quite a lot of modern decks, and so even though I love inclusivity, I don't necessarily need 50,000 modern decks. What truly attracted me to this one is actually the minors, because the minors are a little bit more pippish. than your regular tarot decks. I would say they are pip adjacent in the sense that you don't just have 4 wands, for example. You have objects, but each object is put there with intention that makes a new meaning. But the minors don't necessarily have a lot of people in them. And I enjoy that because sometimes I enjoy decks that gives you a little bit more space, gives you a little bit more breathing room, and I think this one, especially in the minors, does that really well. A lot of the minors, like as you can see, you don't see necessarily anyone in there, and I think it makes it very roomy. This interpretation feel like a breath of fresh air because again, not very peoply, even though there's definitely some people in there. Interesting interpretation, a lot of white space, and just a feeling of clarity and of expanse and openness that I think is gonna be really good to go to when I need again, clarity. I think this would be great for when I need something that's gonna tell it to me like it is without having to necessarily think about it too much. I think this could be a great everyday reader as well from what I've seen. And I really enjoyed the particular interpretation that Charlie made. I really enjoyed what they wrote in the guidebook. It's an interesting view on tarot and something that I really enjoyed reading. Last mass market deck of the list, and then we'll move on to indie, is the Tarot Landscape. This is a deck I originally saw on Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. I'll leave the link to her channel down below. If you're not watching Sylvia, please go do so and tell her I say hi. And I also saw it on Niha's channel from Dark Fate Tarot, another friend of mine who, if you're not watching, definitely go and check her out. I'll leave both of their channels down below. There was one that was very difficult to order to Reunion, and so when I knew I would come to the UK, I asked my friend Jenny if I could deliver it to her house. She very kindly let me do so, and I'm finally a proud owner of the Tarot Landscape, and I'm so excited about it. This is, as the name suggests, a very nature-based kind of deck. It, I don't think, has any humans or very few. It's mostly animals, natures, and plants and things like that. There's always an animal in the card. There is something so poetic and so sweet and so kind about this deck that just from handling it and looking at the cards and reading the guidebook, you feel the intention behind the deck is very sweet, gentle, and intelligent. There's a lot of insight behind this. I love so many of the depictions. The guidebook is fantastic. This is another one. I've read the guidebook, I've looked at the cards, I've not used it yet, but the guidebook is so great. I love the interpretation of the author. I love the choices of the animals, even for the court cards. They make sense, I think. Animal decks can be hit or miss for me. I love animals so much. I love nature deck, but sometimes having one animal on each card can make it a little bit hard when I'm doing larger spreads. I tend to feel like overwhelmed with lots of different energies, lots of different voices. I always joke it makes me feel like I'm at the zoo and I don't know where I'm looking. With this one, I think the unique part of it is that the animal is not necessarily center stage, but its landscape, its habitat is. So if you just want to look at the landscape, you can, and then only after you do notice the animal there. I love that they've added a chameleon because that's one of my favorite animals. But it also feels like they've really managed to depict the harder cards in a way that still conveys so much emotion, so much depth. The choice of color is really interesting. The artwork, even though it could feel like storybook and a bit childlike, is actually, I think, very beautiful and full of emotion. Again, I think the court cards are particularly well chosen. Like the Knight of Cups with the Manta Ray is so great. The Queen of Cups, we have the Beluga Whale, lovely. The King of Cups with the Octopus, so great. You get a lot of decks at once. You have to kind of like go through them one by one, at least me, to give them all their chance to shine, the chance to get to know them, and I like to take my time with them. So I'm excited to start reading with this and find out actually what kind of readings it really sings for. Like I said, the guidebook is fantastic. I've already read it. I really enjoyed what it had to say. For each of the card, you have about a page. You have then some keywords. So let's continue in the indie decks category, and let's continue with the decks I brought back from the UK. These actually next few decks I bought in Watkins Bookshop, which if you've watched the book category, I've mentioned that it's one of the oldest, I think if maybe even the oldest tarot slash esoteric related shop in England. It's a very special place. They stock tarot and oracle decks and books and other like esoteric trinkets, and it's just fantastic, and the people there are super nice. First two are from Robert M. Place. I finally got my hands on some Robert M. Place's deck, which had been on my wishlist for ages. I picked up the Hermes playing cards, and I picked up the Alchemical Tarot 6th edition. So what I loved about Watkins is that they stocked some mass market books, but they actually had really good indie selection. And so for me, and the indie selection was actually really well priced. Like the Robert M. Place decks were really well priced for me, much more affordable than if I had tried to get them shipped to Reunion. So this set of playing cards is a Lenormand set of cards, as well as additional symbols added from Robert M. Place. And so because I've been kind of getting into Lenormand this year, I think Lenormand is kind of popping off in 2024. I see it being like the big thing, and I can see it kind of coming out with a lot more decks. I think a lot of people are getting back into not just Lenormand, but just traditional playing card divination in general, just older style of divination. I think is a general trend happening, and at least for me, it's something I've been called to explore more. So this is one that I was excited to get into. I love the design. It's beautiful. The backings are gorgeous. Small, simple, couple of keywords for each of them, but the actual design is so beautiful. I love Robert M. Place artwork, and I really wanted to own a couple of decks from him, so I was super excited to see that Watkins Books stocked a few of his decks, and this was one of them. This one from Robert M. Place that I was so happy to finally get my hands on is the Alchemical Tarot Renewed 6th edition, the Blue Sky edition, 80 cards. First, can we talk about those gorgeous books? There's something so special about them. It just feels like an old tarot that you would discover in a museum or something. It just feels really special and very beautiful. So I almost bought the huge tarot book from Robert M. Place at Watkins. The only problem is it's huge and so heavy, and I ended up having to make the choice not to buy it because I wouldn't have been able to bring it back due to like suitcase weight and stuff. I've already brought back quite a lot, as I'm gonna show you, so it would have been too much. It's just a classic that I would love to own as a physical book copy one day. As the name suggests, is an alchemy inspired tarot deck. It's not the most recent deck from Robert M. Place, I believe. He has released a brand new one. I can't remember the name of it now. His latest decks. It looks very Egyptian, and it is inspired by, like I said, the very first teachings on tarot. However, because it's a complete different system, it didn't necessarily appeal to me as much as this one, which had been on my wish list for a really long time. So I decided to go with this because with this, I've been eyeing it for ages. It's one I knew I wanted. And maybe later on, when I'm lucky enough to go back, I might pick up his latest deck because it does look really cool. So I already own a alchemy inspired deck by Jean Bauchard, and which is called Le Tarot des Alchimistes, so the Alchemist's Tarot. It's a French mass market deck. Jean Bauchard is kind of like the French equivalent of Robert M. Place. He's another tarot passionate. He's another tarot teacher, someone who's just so knowledgeable and passionate about tarot that they've definitely left their mark on the tarot world. If you are French speaking, I highly recommend checking out Jean Bauchard's work. And so I'm very interested now to get into this particular interpretation from Robert M. Place, to see the links that he has drawn with alchemy. And I think beyond the alchemical layer that this deck offers, mostly the artwork is so gorgeous. Like I said, I love Robert M. Place's artwork. I think it's beautiful. This backing is just so gorgeous. There's something about the line work, something about the colors. It feels classic, but also timeless. So excited to finally own a deck from his. Like I said, Watkins actually stored quite a few of them. It was difficult to choose, but because this is the one that I had watched many walkthroughs of and that had been on my wishlist the longest, I decided to go with this. Moving on to another Watkins find, another indie deck that I had been on my wishlist for years, literally years. Finally got my hands on it. This is the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot by Usi. Now, I have a confession. When I was watching walkthroughs and stuff and I would see people with an open seal, I always used to think, why don't you open the seal, girl? Just open the seal. But then I got the box and it was so beautiful that I was like, I don't want to open the seal. I'm gonna be one of those people. So I've actually been opening it from the bottom too, even though that used to irk me when I was watching people's video. I'm one of those girls now that doesn't open seals. I did it for the Hermes playing card and I regretted it immediately because I fucked it up so bad. But with this one, you can't actually open it at the bottom, it's glued. So I had to, and it's okay, I'll leave. But with this one, I don't know, it just looks so pretty that I'm like, I don't want to mess it up. So I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm one of those girls. Do I even need to show you the Pagan Otherworld? Like, so many of you know what it looks like. So many of you know this deck. It's been out for years. It's definitely one of those indie decks that was early to be published and that got very popular very quickly for good reasons. It's absolutely beautiful, very classical looking. One of my favorite things about this deck is definitely the minors. They're very pippish and it's something that I don't have a lot of in my tarot collection. A lot of my decks are very scenic, very RWS inspired, and even though this definitely follows the RWS for the majors and the court cards, the minors are a lot more pippish, and which I guess is a recurrent theme in the recent decks I got. We had this particular vibe with the Fifth Spirit and even with Tarot Landscape, so I guess I'm kind of sick of people right now, which sounds really bad. I don't think I am, but maybe subconsciously I am, I don't know. I'm just, I guess, drawn to things that are a little bit more nature-based, a little bit more open. And this is a deck that had been on my wish list, like I said, years. It's just one of those that I never picked up, and when I saw that Watkins stored it, and they actually stored it with the book as a package, which I haven't even opened it yet. One thing that surprised me, I knew this was linen. I didn't expect it to be so slippery. This is the equivalent of shoving butter all over yourself and jumping off a swimming pool. Tuesday I got it out of the box, it exploded everywhere in my room and it took me a good 2 minutes to try and figure out where all the cards had been. So that's one thing I was not necessarily like ready for. Please let me know in the comments first if you have this deck. How do you use it? How does it resonate? Do you enjoy it? Have you kept it all this time? Have you gotten rid of it? Let me know all your experiences with this, and also let me know, have you kept the seal or not? This is $1 million question now. Have you kept the seal or have you gotten rid of it? Because I always thought I would be a girl that doesn't keep the seal, and now I'm over here like unable to break it. So let's talk about it in the comments. This one I actually physically managed to shove in my suitcase before it was about to explode is the Red Seed Oracle 2 by Linda Hill. This is another one I picked up from Watkins, and they had a couple of Linda Hill's deck. They had this one, the Oracle. They also had one of her tarot. I almost picked up the tarot, but again, choices had to be made and I wasn't there for that long. So in the end, I went with this Oracle. Always enjoyed Linda Hill's artwork. I'll leave the link to their Instagram and stuff down below. They have a tarot and they have a few Oracle decks. Like I said, this one is the second one. I always wanted one of her decks. I just never knew which one, and then when I was in the shop they stored the second oracle and I was like, well, this is a sign, this is the one I'll get. I believe she has 3 different oracles. Each oracle is set up in a similar way, as in one side of the card has the artwork with the image of like a goddess or a muse or a person from mostly, I believe, Greek mythology, and then on the other side you have goddess or mythical figure. You have some words for the oracle too, it's from Sappho. I think for the other oracles we have Rumi and someone else, and then you have some text, either a poem or a message, and you always have a challenge and a gift, which I guess you could read as like a upward meaning or a reversed meaning. And so I was always very fascinated by this particular artwork, and I always wanted to own one of her decks. So again, when I saw that Watkins book stored this particular oracle, it was a no-brainer. And this is actually the deck I've been pairing with the Circe Tarot. In the UK, and I started to look at my decks, I started playing with them together, and I've not stopped really using them together now that I'm back. Just both carry this like Greek mythology and divine feminine vibe, which I've been really enjoying right now. I'm super happy I actually picked up this particular one, the number 2, because I didn't even know that it actually holds some of my favorite goddesses. We have Artemis, we have Athena, and we have Aphrodite. Like all of the main ones that I would work for are here. which I love. We even have a Sappho card right here, which I thought was a really nice addition, and it's beautiful. So this is one I've been working with for the last few weeks, and it's one that I really enjoy. I'm gonna share more about how I use it in my favorite videos, because that's usually where I kind of give you feedback on how I've been using decks, in what spreads I've been using, in what capacities, what kind of themes they seem to work really well for or not. Let's move on now to decks that were waiting for me when I got back, because obviously I was away for about 10 days, and whilst I was away, some decks were arriving in my post box, so I want to quickly mention them. The first one is one that I believe everyone has already received by now. I was probably one of the last people to get theirs. The Bohemian Gothic Tarot. It's one that I had pre-ordered last year. It's by Baba Studio. It's a classic. They finally reprinted it. I know so many people ordered this one. I know so many tarot tubers shared theirs. Like I said, I only got mine while I was away because it comes from the UK and the postage can take months for me to get my decks. It does come with this like effect. I forgot already what it's called. Cold stamping, I think it's called cold stamping, where they give this effect, which I honestly am not the biggest fan of, I will say. I have the Victorian Romantic, and I will say that the Victorian Romantic's cold foiling, or whatever the fuck this is called, is a lot more subtle, because this deck is very dark and a lot of the colors of the backgrounds are blue and gray, depending on where you look at the cards. And because I live in a very sunny place, obviously I live on a tropical island, this is mostly what I see when I look at the cards myself, and I always have to kind of like bend the cards a little in order to see the depth of them. So I think if you live somewhere not super sunny, you would probably enjoy this deck more, or at least you would probably see the details more. But the way I see them is often like this. I always have to kind of tilt them a little bit so that they don't catch the light so much, so that I can better see the details. So for me, this added effect, I'm gonna be completely honest, is a bit overkill. And I know that's very unpopular opinion, because for a lot of people Baba Studio is sacred, but I'm just giving you my honest opinion in terms of, as someone who lives somewhere sunny, when you look at when you see this, you don't really see the details of what's going on, sadly, in the castle and stuff. You kind of have to like go like this in order to really appreciate it, which is a bit of a shame. But that being said, this is a deck I wanted for years. Again, I missed the last one, so I was very happy that they finally brought it back, and I love the artwork. It's really not the feel right now for me, and we're in the middle of summer, so I've not even used it yet because it just doesn't feel correct for me. I'm in the middle of summer, it's super hot, it's like 40 degrees. It just doesn't feel really like the vibe, and even with the luminosity I'm struggling. So I think maybe if I use this in our winter, which will be like June, July, August, it might be even nicer to look at. For now, I'm very glad I got it. I'm very glad that I'll be able to use it once we get into cooler months for me. My just first initial reaction was a bit of disappointment with how bright this effect is on the card, but that is completely personal preference, and it doesn't take away from the fact that the artwork itself is really beautiful. I just like to be truthful with you guys, and just because something is super hype, it won't stop me from giving you my personal opinion. And right now my personal opinion is a little bit overhyped, but again, unpopular opinion, so take it with a pinch of salt. An amazing surprise that was waiting for me in my post box when I came back was this beauty, the Crystal Skull Tarot by Jessie Driscoll and book by Rachel Pollack. I need to thank Jessie, who very kindly sent me her deck gift, and she sent me some beautiful little presents alongside with it. And I just want to thank her so much if she's watching, because it was such a treat to receive this deck from her and to get to know it, as she's a creator. So thank you so much, Jessie, first, if you're watching. And this is a deck I've been using for the last week or so I'll just give you my first impressions, and then I'll talk about it more in my future monthly favorite. But spoiler alert, I'm obsessed. And I'm so thankful to Jessie for sending it to me, because I hadn't heard of this particular deck. I mean, I'm not always keeping up to date with what's coming up and stuff. There's a lot of decks that I miss and that I'm not always like on top. The Crystal Skull Tarot, as the name suggests, is a deck picturing all different crystal skulls. So this was created by Jessie, and she very cleverly mixed yarns with different crystals and different crystal skulls, and every picture is taken with window light. And because of the mix of different yarns and window light pictures and all the different crystal skulls and crystals and other little bits that she added to create all the scenes of all the 78 cards, it gives this deck a homemade vibe that I absolutely love, because there's a lot of craft behind this deck, there's a lot of intention, and because of the nature of, like, again, window light photography and everything, it just makes this deck feel very homely and very comfortable. And it's unlike anything I have in my collection. Like, I don't have any deck where people actually took pictures of objects that they set out to create tarot imagery, and I think it's genius. And what I really love about this deck is all the intention that Jessie put behind every single thing in the picture, whether it's the color of the yarn, whether it's the type of crystal, like is it jasper, is it agate, is it amazonite, and what does it mean. And then again, like the color of the yarn, which I believe Jessie might have dyed herself. I think I read in the guidebook the directionality of where the skull is facing and what other objects are present. So well thought out. And when you read the guidebook, which is written by Rachel Pollack, which is also a huge bonus for me. I mean, come on, what a treat to have a book written by Rachel Pollack. Like, that is such an amazing addition, because you know that she, for me, is one of the tarot queens out there. The depth of the guidebook and Rachel's work, alongside the intention and the dedication of Jessie's pictures and work, it makes for a very profound and deep deck that completely took me by surprise. Didn't know what to expect when Jessie offered to send this to me as a present. I really didn't know. I love working with crystals, but I didn't know how well I would bond with a deck picturing crystals. But this is not just a deck picturing crystals, it's a deck that tells a story. For me, this really took me by surprise. Even I've been using it this week, and look at this tower, how beautiful. I've been loving exploring all the additional layers, the color choices, the yarn work, the types of crystal chosen. It's been a real joy, and it's one I'm gonna continue using for the rest of the month. And of course, I'll share more of it in my February favorites, because by then I will have worked with it even more. I'll be able to give you even more of my thoughts, but so far I can tell you what a great surprise. This is honestly a beautiful, intentionate, surprising, unique deck that actually brings something different to the table, which is so rare nowadays. There's like just so much AI out there, there's so much like generated stuff by computer, which I don't want to get into the whole polemic, but it does feel a little bit like overwhelmed sometimes and overkill. And to see something actually handmade with so much intention behind it, it's truly a breath of fresh air. So thank you so much, Jessie, for sharing that. And of course, this deck is available on Etsy. I'll leave the link in the description box below where you can find Jessie's work. I believe it is at Crystal Skull Tarot. This is where you can find everything. You can find Jessie's Instagram page, you can find her Etsy shop and everything. I will again leave it in the description box. Make sure to check her out, to follow her. Oh my god, last 2 decks, and I think this might be an hour long haul. I hope you guys were ready, because this is when I said it was going to be epic, I really wasn't lying. So last 2 decks that were waiting for me in my mailbox are 2 decks that were very kindly sent to me by Essany. I already owned a couple of decks from Essany, the Modern Goddess Oracle, which I love, the Modern Love Tarot, which is right here, let me grab it, which I also love. So I was already very familiar with Essany's work. And for me, Essany is the queen of guidebooks. She always writes amazing guidebooks. Let me quickly show you this one. The Modern Love Tarot for me has been consistently for the last, I don't know when this came out. Was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago? Whenever it was, ever since, it's been my only romantic deck that I've been using. Self-love, romantic love, relationships, breakups, whatever the theme, whatever questions I've been asked by friends and family, or for myself, any kind of love related readings, I've only and purely use this one. The guidebook is so great. The artwork is modern and colorful and really beautiful. And so this was already a very firm, strong favorite. I've talked about it on my channel many times, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. So when Ethany got in touch with me and offered to send me a couple of her decks, absolutely a no-brainer for me, because like I said, I already own 2 of her decks and love them and use them constantly. So she very kindly sent me the Awakened Soul Oracle, which I didn't have, and her latest tarot, I believe, which is the Penumbra Tarot. I'm gonna be doing a video about both those decks. I'll share you a couple of cards now, and then I'll share more when I do the video. The Awakened Soul Oracle is, I believe, one of our first decks, and it's one that was always on my wish list. So when she got in touch with me and offered to send it to me, I was ecstatic because I've always wanted this deck. I think it's this beautiful mix of like modern with a little bit of magic and fantasy. The keywords are really expensive, the artwork is beautiful. I think this would go great with so many decks, so many of my modern decks, the Light Seers, the Modern Love obviously, the Black Femme, even potentially the Fifth Spirit that I just acquired, or even maybe why not the Tarot Landscape, and of course the Penumbra Tarot that I'll just show with you in a second. I think this will go so great with a lot of like modern decks, but also with like fantasy ones, because we do have a lot of magic here, which if you're familiar with Ethany's work, you know that she tends to bring a little bit of sparkle of magic in everything she does. So I'm very excited to finally own this one, as this had been on my wish list for literal years. And the second deck she sent to me for review is a Penumbra Tarot. I actually hadn't really heard much of it until she got in touch, so I'm super excited to get to know this one, because it's not one that I feel like I've really seen people show or anything like that, and yet I've already read the guidebook, which when I tell you Ethany is the queen of guidebooks, hello, look at this. It's juicy, it's so great, and again I'll share more of it in my review, but I love the fact that for every single card we have Ethany's view on it, and we also have the artist view on it, which gives us so much added depth into why they chose this particular representation and why they decided to depict every card with particular symbolism and stuff. That just makes for such a deep, inviting guidebook. I just love when we have different people's perspective in something. It just brings a lot of depth. I was so pleasantly surprised by how beautiful this is, and again, I've not really seen this anywhere before. Again, sometimes things just go off my radar. I'm not very good at keeping up to date with stuff, and yet this is absolutely up my street. This is very elemental based, and it's very anchored in spirits, spirit of air, spirit of earth, spirit of water, etc. It feels rooted in this particular type of spirit work and of elemental work, and I think the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm gonna do a separate review for both of those decks. I'll share with you the Oracle and share with you my thoughts, my favorite cards, all of that. I need more time to work with it. Like I said, I've read the guidebooks, I've used it a few times, I've put it back in order because I want to do a little bit more of a study of it before I give you my full thoughts, full review, but watch out for that because I will definitely be coming. And I just in advance want to thank Ethany so much for sending those to me, because I'm super excited and I can't wait to share them with you. Remember, this was a mix between first impressions as well as mini reviews for the stuff I've been using recently, but I will always come back in my future videos, monthly favorites and things like that, to give you my final thoughts after I've worked with things more, after I've gone in depth. But I just couldn't wait any longer and wanted to share with you all my new stuff. So I hope you enjoyed seeing it. And again, if you want to hear all about the trip, what I actually got up to, the other stuff I brought back from the UK, make sure to check out my future monthly favorite, because that's where I'll give you a little bit of a life catch up. I want to thank you for your patience while I was away. Thank you so much for waiting for me to feel better so I could come back here. I hope you're all doing good. I hope you're having a good month of February. I am sending you so much good vibes, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!